This daughter-in-law of a wealthy Chibal family is truly pitiful. If she wants to enjoy some private time with her husband, her only option is to go to a hotel. Her name is Hiyong, and on the surface, she lives the life every woman dreams of. Her husband is the primary heir to a publicly listed company. Her mother-in-law is Korea's top hanbok designer, and all she has to do is stay home and look beautiful. But life is never as perfect as it seems in our imagination. Hiyong has been married into this wealthy family for 10 years, but her husband is so busy he never comes home, living year-round in a hotel near his company. Today, unable to hold back her longing for him, Hiyong squats outside the hotel door, waiting for her husband. Then, Hiyong lays out the dinner she had prepared on the table. But the man doesn't take a single bite. Instead, he tells her to leave, saying his assistant is coming to report on work shortly. He tells her to clean up and leave quickly. Hearing this, the woman doesn't get angry at all. She simply tells him to take care of his health and leaves. Afterward, she goes to the airport to pick up her mother-in-law, who has just landed. In front of the cameras, the wealthy mother-in-law continuously praises her daughter-in-law for being gentle and capable, claiming everyone in the family is very satisfied with her. But the moment they get in the car to go home, her face changes instantly. She criticizes Hiyong for being too stiff in front of the media just now and tells her not to show up at such events in the future, claiming it lowers her value. After saying that, she kicks Hiyong out of the car right in the middle of the highway. On this desolate road, Hiyong has to walk 10 kilometers in high heels. She finally makes it to a bus stop, but by then, her feet are scraped raw and bleeding. Put this on for now and apply some ointment when you get home. Hiyong doesn't realize that she has a rather deep connection with the man beside her. Hiyong returns home injured, but instead of comforting her, her mother-in-law mocks her narrow perspective, saying that no matter how many designer clothes she wears, she can't hide her poor background. The wealthy family also demands she take the initiative in having children, telling her that if she just obediently waits at home, a man won't just come knocking on her door. Facing her mother-in-law's sarcasm, Hiyong can only chew on ice to suppress the anger building inside her. Later, she goes to the hotel and prepares lights and wine. Seeing this, her husband just stands at the door, looking at her with cold eyes. After a brief and half-hearted intimate moment, he rushes Hiyong to leave, even saying he has already called a taxi for her. Faced with her husband's attitude, Hiyong feels incredibly humiliated and hurriedly puts on her clothes to leave. But her zipper gets stuck, and Hiyong accidentally falls onto the bed. Seeing this, the husband beside her looks annoyed. He helps her zip it up and then tells her to go home quickly. Hiyong returns home in disappointment and rewatches a videotape from 5 years ago with her husband, titled Flying Freely. Today, breaking his usual routine, her husband actually eats dinner at home. But looking at the videotape sitting on the table, his heart fills with unspeakable resentment. Seeing that her husband is rarely home, Hiyong keeps sharing recent events, trying hard to find a common topic. But her husband's indifferent response breaks her heart. With tears in her eyes, she begs him to talk to her more. "You hardly ever come home. Can't you comfort me just a little bit?" The husband glances at the videotape on the table and tells her, "Comfort is for pitiful people, so stop causing trouble just because you have too much free time at home." Then, her husband takes a phone call and walks out. Sitting on the bed, the woman feels guilty, wondering if she overreacted. She carefully prepares some fruit to apologize and even advises her husband that if they want to have a baby, he needs to take his medicine on time. But unexpectedly, her husband's reply leaves her speechless. Have a second child just to replace Seo-jin? That's impossible. It turns out Hiyong's son passed away in a car accident 5 years ago. Unable to face the pain of losing her child, Hiyong still cleans her son's room every single day and sings his favorite songs inside the room. Her husband also frequently witnesses Hiyong sinking deep into her grief, unable to pull herself out. Hiyong tells him she doesn't want to fight with him about Seo-jin anymore, saying it would break their son's heart if he watched them from heaven like this. But her husband feels he can't let Hiyong go on living this way. So, while she is out, he arranges for a moving company to clear out all of Seo-jin's belongings, trying to force his wife to say goodbye to the past. However, Hiyong comes home just in time to witness this scene. Clutching a craft her son made with his own hands, she asks him why he is doing this. Her husband replies that these things have been sitting there for too long, and there is no need to keep them in the house anymore. Beside herself, Hiyong begs him to stop, crying that she can't go on living if Seo-jin's room is gone. But her husband ignores Hiyong's attempts to stop him and violently throws the handmade craft to the ground. Hiyong stares at the ruined room, sobbing silently, feeling as if her own heart has shattered into pieces. Her husband coldly tells her to wake up and orders the movers not to leave a single thing behind, leaving Hiyong sitting dazedly on the floor. Afterward, her husband meets his mother's secretary outside the door and tells her, "Let's meet at the usual place." Looking at the look in the secretary's eyes, you get the feeling there is definitely something shady going on. The next day, as usual, Hiyong goes to her late son's school to do volunteer work. Just as she is getting ready to head home, she sees a child hurriedly crossing the street. This moment instantly triggers the memory of her son's accident, and she rushes to save the child without a second thought. Looking at the child lying on the ground, the trauma in her heart transports her back to 5 years ago. "Seo-jin, wake up please. What should I do? Seo-jin." After taking the child to the hospital, Hiyong is still frantically calling out her son's name, drowning in the pain of losing a child all over again. The man who gave her the band-aid walks by and is drawn by the sound of crying. Looking at the woman sitting on the floor in a panic, he suddenly remembers the past. It turns out she is the very same woman whose son died 5 years ago. He was the one who performed emergency surgery on the boy. The boy's passing made him constantly blame himself, feeling that his arrogance had killed the child. However, his mentor told him that if he hadn't operated immediately, the child would have died in the ER before even making it to the operating room. But back then, Hiyong was outside screaming continuously, accusing him of being a murderer. Upon returning home, Hiyong takes an album, snaps a photo of a happy picture of the two of them, and sends it to her husband. She tells him that while she doesn't have the confidence to let her son go yet, she will try her best to go back to being as happy as they were in that picture. Sitting in his car, the husband pretends he didn't see anything and offers not a single word of comfort. Instead, the husband goes to be with another woman. The woman has carefully prepared a candlelit dinner, poured some vintage wine from the 80s, and calls out to Hiyong's husband, telling him to come out of the room and enjoy it. But Hiyong's husband gets dressed and rushes to leave, telling the woman that he has to go home for dinner. Hearing this, the woman pretends not to care. "I understand. You absolutely have to eat dinner at home, cooked by your wife." After the man leaves, the woman sits alone at the dining table, drinking wine and lost in thought. The next day, Secretary Lee is packing luggage for her husband. Seeing this, Hiyong becomes sensitive and sarcastic, telling her she should praise her work ethic since the secretary even knows where her husband's underwear is kept in the bedroom. Secretary Lee replies that when Hiyong isn't around, she is the one who handles these things. Hiyong declares to Secretary Lee that from now on, if something like this comes up, she should leave it to her to handle. In the evening, Hiyong goes to bring coffee to her husband, but when she pushes the door open, she finds she is a step too late. Seeing her, her husband immediately tells her to go outside, saying he has important business to discuss with Secretary Lee right now. Hearing this, Hiyong can only leave awkwardly. Later, she curiously asks her mother-in-law why she sometimes feels that her husband's relationship with Secretary Lee is even closer than his relationship with her, noting that they seem to have so much to talk about when they are together. The mother-in-law explains that Secretary Lee has been with the family for 10 years. They were high school classmates who once shared a life, or death bond. She tells Hiyong to stop letting her imagination run wild and instead spend her time reading books to improve her own self-cultivation. Depressed, Hiyong has nowhere to go but a convenience store, where she sits alone in her sadness. Just then, a few thugs approach and corner her in a secluded, empty spot, making Hiyong feel incredibly threatened. Suddenly, a man's voice calls out from behind them. After a tense fight, the man ends up being beaten black and blue. It seems there's a price to pay for trying to be a hero. Worried that Hiyong might run into trouble again, the man patiently walks her all the way to her doorstep. For the first time, the two of them actually face each other and get to know one another, even exchanging phone numbers. The next day, the mother-in-law takes Hiyong, who has been unable to conceive a second child, to the hospital for a checkup, but the doctor's answer leaves her stunned. Her daughter-in-law can never get pregnant again? Not wanting to tip her hand just yet, the mother-in-law keeps this news a secret from Hiyong. She then takes Secretary Lee to an empty room and tells her that she has known about Lee's relationship with her son for a long time. She says she can give Lee a hand, but Lee must promise to do one thing for her: draft divorce papers for Hiyong and her husband. She adds that a mutual agreement divorce would be best, but they must also be prepared for a lawsuit. To cover up the news that Hiyong cannot bear children, the mother-in-law takes her daughter-in-law to the hanbok shop to enjoy star-level treatment, even praising her as a living clothes hanger. Hiyong is very surprised to hear this, as she previously had absolutely no status at home. Her husband, wanting to avoid her care, uses work as an excuse every day not to come home. Meanwhile, her mother-in-law is very strict with her. Every outfit and the way she dresses must follow the mother-in-law's arrangements. She can only act submissively in front of her, trying hard to receive even a little bit of validation from her in-laws. Later, the mother-in-law sends a few high-end handboks to her daughter-in-law's family, intending to create the appearance of a good relationship with the in-laws. But when Secretary Lee drives up to the house, she sees a man walking Hiyong home, and they are chatting happily as they part ways. Sitting in the car, the mother-in-law can't sit still seeing this. It's as if she found a way to make Hiyong initiate the divorce. However, upon returning home, she pretends nothing happened and even gifts them concert tickets so she and her son can go on a date. The naive Hiyong thinks she has finally been recognized by her mother-in-law and hurriedly thanks her for the arrangement. Later, Hiyong arrives on time to pick up her husband for the concert. This makes Secretary Lee, who is standing nearby, feel very uncomfortable. After the performance ends, Hiyong emotionally hugs her husband. Thinking that her relationship with her husband has healed, she happily prepares hot soup for him. Just as she is about to knock and enter, she hears a woman's voice inside the study. Her intuition kicks in, and she gently pushes the door open. The scene inside leaves Hiyong standing outside the door in terror. She can only run into the bathroom and sob uncontrollably. She truly cannot believe what she just saw, causing her to lose sleep all night. Looking at her husband sleeping beside her, she finds him even more of a stranger. After thinking it through, she decides to rise up and fight back. First, she applies bright red lipstick in front of her vanity mirror. Then, she confronts Secretary Lee directly. However, Lee advises her that it would be best to wear lighter lipstick if she is going to school and even demands that she change her clothes. Hiyong bluntly refuses and tells her that she is nothing but a servant. When Secretary Lee arrives to pick her up to go to the traditional medicine clinic, Hiyong remains cold toward her and walks off with her older fellow students. Meanwhile, the mother-in-law, with a scowling face, hires a divorce lawyer to discuss how to blame the daughter-in-law for the breakdown of the marriage. At this moment, Secretary Lee runs in and reports to the mother-in-law. If we can obtain evidence of her having an affair, wouldn't the divorce be a sure thing? Hearing this, the mother-in-law's eyes light up. Meanwhile, the Band-Aid man has just walked Hiyong home. Just as the man is treating the wound on Hiyong's foot, her husband sees them from inside his car. He wonders what the two of them are doing right in front of the house. When he recognizes the man as Dr. Jigun, he becomes even more suspicious, wondering why he is looking at his wife like that. Then, he approaches and grabs Hiyong's hand, intending to lead her inside. But Hiyong brushes his hand away. Jigun immediately greets Hiyong as teacher. It turns out he is currently taking Hiyong's cooking class at the center. Hearing this, the husband thanks Jigun for walking his wife home and then heads inside. Today, using work as an excuse, she goes to Secretary Lee's house. First, she carefully observes the room, then she starts toying with Secretary Lee's rings and jewelry. This behavior finally makes Secretary Lee lose her temper. Hiyong bluntly tells her that Chief Lee has been using her husband without her permission. Hiyong warns Secretary Lee to stop wrecking other people's families, telling her to voluntarily quit her job and leave this house. But unexpectedly, Secretary Lee chases after her, saying that the person who should truly leave is actually her. The only connection between you and your husband was your son, and now your son is gone. You are no longer happy in this house, so why do you stay here, bowing and scraping before others every single day? Hit right where it hurts, Hiyong throws her bag directly at her. Chief Lee refuses to back down, and the two start wrestling and pulling each other's hair. In the afternoon, Secretary Lee shows up with a face full of injuries to report to the mother-in-law. The sight leaves the mother-in-law stunned, and she asks if there is something Lee hasn't told her. Chief Lee originally intended to hide what had happened, but seeing the mother-in-law's reaction, she gets scared and says, "It seems the young madam knows about my relationship with your son." The daughter-in-law might have misunderstood. Meanwhile, Hiyong is wandering the streets with messy hair. Jigun spots the wounds on her face, and worried that something happened to her again, silently follows to protect her the entire way. He follows her from the school to the shopping mall, and from the mall to the mountain. It isn't until Hiyong arrives safely at her doorstep that Jigun finally breathes a sigh of relief. Back at home, her husband is worried that Hiyong has something going on with Jigun on the side, which could damage his perfect public image. So, he manipulates the situation by inviting Hiyong's parents out to dinner to smooth things over with his wife. But Hiyong isn't grateful at all. In fact, she finds her husband even more repulsive. After seeing her parents off, Hiyong bluntly asks her husband if Secretary Lee has told him everything. Seeing her husband remain silent, Hiyong sneers. She has been married for 13 years. Yet the reason he treated her parents to dinner turns out to be because of his mistress. Her husband bluntly tells her to think of her parents, saying it's best not to make a scene and to just let it slide. He feels justified in his actions, leaving Hiyong behind as he drives away. Heartbroken, Hiyong plans to visit her son's memorial to find some comfort, but she accidentally runs into Jigun, who is there apologizing to her son. Seeing Hiyong, Jigun hurriedly lies, saying he came to visit a friend. Noticing she is in a bad mood, he takes her out for a late-night meal. During the meal, Jigun talks about his own child. Hiyong expresses great admiration. Even though his child is in the US and they can only meet via video call once a week, it is still better than being separated by life and death, never able to meet again. By the time Hiyong returns home exhausted, her husband is already waiting in the living room. He asks her why she is back so late and if she went to Seo-jin's place. Hiyong says that she isn't a special person and that she struggled and fought just to be worthy of him. But now, she won't do that anymore. She says she will pull herself together and find a reason to tolerate him and continue living with him. Her husband asks her, "What if you can't find a reason?" She replies, "Then the only option is divorce." Discovering that Jigun is very close to her daughter-in-law, the mother-in-law begins investigating his identity. It turns out Jigun is a famous medical doctor with significant influence in the industry. Furthermore, he is the former son-in-law of the ex-chairman of her son's company. Wanting to create more opportunities for her daughter-in-law to interact with him, the mother-in-law hands over an orphan child, whom she and her daughter-in-law had previously supported, for him to take care of. She even specifically tells Hiyong about the child's medical condition and tells her to visit the child more often when she has free time. Meanwhile, her husband continues to try every method possible to patch things up with his wife, sometimes buying designer bags, other times giving fresh flowers. Today, he even planned to come home early to get intimate with his wife. But Hiyong has lost all hope. She directly divides the bed in half and tells her husband that, for the time being, she still hasn't found a reason to keep living with him. But hearing this, her husband shows no pity at all. He tells her that crying won't solve anything and orders Hiyong to quickly return to her proper place. The next day, Hiyong goes to the hospital to visit the orphan, only to discover that the boy's attending physician is none other than the man who had helped her before. The two quickly chat about the child's medical condition. Meanwhile, the scheming mother-in-law is currently on the phone telling her son that his wife is at the hospital, urging him to take Hiyong for a walk during his lunch break. Afterward, Hiyong's husband arrives at the hospital and finds his wife eating lunch with Jigun, looking as close to a family. Meanwhile, he feels completely like an outsider. After returning home, Hiyong even buys a pile of toys and bakes cookies in cute shapes, planning to bring them to the child. Seeing this, her husband finally can't hold it in anymore and asks her if she is treating the child at the hospital as a replacement for Seo-jin to care for. But Hiyong replies that he isn't a replacement for Seo-jin, but a replacement for him. You surely have never seen a mother-in-law as scheming as this. Wanting to kick her daughter-in-law out, she plots to frame her. A few days ago, wanting to create more opportunities for her daughter-in-law to interact with Jigun, the mother-in-law handed the orphan they supported over to Ji-gun's care and then ordered someone to secretly take photos and send them to her son. Hearing about this, her son flies into a rage and drives to the hospital. Seeing the two of them together, he drags Hiyong out. Ji-gun hurriedly runs over to explain that he has misunderstood. But the husband punches Ji-gun and warns him to stay away from his wife from now on. After saying that, the husband angrily drags Hiyong away. Later, the mother-in-law uses the excuse of visiting the orphan to invite her daughter-in-law to go along. Facing her mother-in-law's firm attitude, the submissive Hiyong can only obey. But once at the hospital, she pretends she already knows what happened last night, then deliberately gives her the cold shoulder, and without saying a word, leaves in anger. Since marrying into the family, Hiyong has always been afraid of her mother-in-law. Always fearful in front of her, knowing the consequences of her anger would be unpredictable, so she hurriedly hailed a taxi to chase after her. But when she gets home, she discovers the house passcode has been changed. To get a chance to explain, Hiyong squats by the door all night until her husband comes back and lets her inside. But after entering the house, her mother-in-law's words leave her stunned. Didn't my daughter-in-law say she had urgent business and had to go to her parents' house? Her husband sees a suitcase in the room and assumes Hiyong is voluntarily asking to leave this house. Hearing this, Hiyong can only smile bitterly, saying that her husband is actually very much like his mother. He never trusts anyone. If he doesn't trust her, then let her leave. Afterwards, Hiyong uses the excuse that her mother-in-law is on a business trip, giving her a few free days to visit her parents' house, and mentions she has had a loss of appetite and no energy lately. Hearing this, her mother is overjoyed, thinking she is pregnant again. So, early the next morning, she cooks her favorite noodles. Looking at Hiyong's expression, she instantly feels full of life. Parents are indeed the best safe harbor for their children. Meanwhile, on the other side, wanting her son to give up hope, the mother-in-law acts like a professional actress, telling her son that she worked so hard to achieve what she has today, but she chose the wrong daughter-in-law, and now it's such a disgrace. Today, knowing her daughter has had no appetite or energy lately, Hiyong's mother asks if that time of the month has been irregular. Looking at her daughter's expression, her mother becomes even more certain of her guess and forces Hiyong to go to the hospital for a checkup. But the doctor's answer makes her mother furious, and she yells out, "That's not right. How can it be early menopause? How old is she even?" Standing beside her, Hiyong also finds it very strange. Clearly, when she went with her mother-in-law, the doctor said everything was normal. So she calls the previous doctor to confirm, and only then does she realize her mother-in-law had deceived her. Wanting to comfort her hurt daughter, her mother tells her that for young people, being a childless couple is actually fine. They can enjoy a world just for the two of them. Seeking an explanation, Hiyong goes to the hanbok shop late at night to find her mother-in-law, but upon seeing her daughter-in-law, the mother-in-law turns her head and walks away, leaving Hiyong sitting outside the door all night, refusing to see her. Meanwhile, the mother-in-law continues to fake being ill, telling her son to give up on this daughter-in-law who cannot bear children. But her son doesn't listen to his mother's advice, and even personally, goes to his in-laws' house to bring Hiyong back. Not wanting to upset her parents, Hiyong reluctantly agrees. But back at home, the mother-in-law doesn't accept this so easily. The next morning, she flexes her authority over Hiyong. Later, Hiyong prepares a table full of food, hoping to win her mother-in-law over. But she would rather eat rice mixed with hot water than touch a single dish on the table, and she even throws the premium abalone into the trash. Unable to bear such waste, Hiyong washes it and cooks it again. But seeing this, her mother-in-law calls her uneducated. She replies that a person's sincerity cannot be thrown away so casually. Unexpectedly, hearing this, the mother-in-law apologizes to her daughter-in-law, saying there is a small event at the hanbok shop this afternoon and asking her to join. Hiyong feels confused hearing this, not knowing what tricks she is playing. As expected, the mother-in-law has bad intentions. In front of all the expectant mothers, she announces that her daughter-in-law can no longer have children. Who could possibly endure such humiliation? So, after the event ends, Hiyong begs her mother-in-law not to do that again. But her mother-in-law's words leave her completely hopeless. "Because of you, our family line has ended." At night, Hiyong slowly opens her eyes and realizes her husband isn't in bed, so she tiptoes out to find him. Then, she hears a familiar voice. "Get in the car first." She carefully opens the door and discovers her husband helping Secretary Lee into the car. It turns out the message about Secretary Lee going abroad to study was fake. Unable to handle the shock, Hiyong meets with Ji-gun to ask for advice, asking him what she should do in this situation. Ji-gun asks her in return, "Since you are in so much pain, why don't you learn to let go?" Hiyong opens up to Ji-gun saying, "Because I am afraid." Speaking her mind makes Hiyong feel much more relieved. But on the way home, she discovers Secretary Lee reporting to her mother-in-law. It turns out her mother-in-law has also been deceiving her all along, and she is the biggest fool in the house. Hiyong looks at the photo of her late son and tells Seo-jin in heaven, "Mom wants to let go now." Hiyong finally learns to let go of the obsession in her heart and picks up her phone to send a message to her husband. Later, following the address in the message, her husband arrives at a restaurant, only to find that Secretary Lee is also there. Just as her husband intends to take Secretary Lee away, Hiyong calls him back and calmly hands him an envelope. Her husband opens it to see that it is a divorce petition. Feeling humiliated, he tears the divorce papers to shreds right there. Back at home, he flips over the luggage Hiyong had prepared. "There will be no divorce in my life. Then, her husband calls her mother on his phone, telling her that if she has the guts, she should tell her mother over the phone that she wants a divorce. Hearing her mother's voice on the other end, Hiyong is rendered speechless and runs out of the room crying. But unexpectedly, the mother-in-law heard everything clearly from inside the room and warned Hiyong not to put on an act in front of them. Clearly, you are deluding yourself, yet you want to blame your husband for the divorce. Hearing this, Hiyong can't believe her ears. It turns out that this mother and son are truly terrifying. After hearing this, Hiyong is completely disappointed. To live with dignity in this wealthy family, she has to live cautiously every single day. At this very moment, she is utterly exhausted, lacking even the strength to walk. Luckily, she is spotted by Ji-gun, who happens to be passing by. Seeing her frail condition, he takes her to a remote countryside area to recuperate. After waking up, Hiyong wants absolutely nothing to do with that family anymore. Every day, she simply helps Ji-gun's father manage a small pharmacy in the countryside. Living such a simple life, far away from the luxurious mansion and the noise of the city, she finally finds a bit of peace. But little does she know that her every move is being watched by her mother-in-law. Today, the vicious mother-in-law issues a final warning to her, telling her she had better behave herself. Her mother-in-law's words plunge Hiyong into misery once again, and she sobs uncontrollably in front of her best friend. To completely cut ties with that family, the next day, Hiyong goes to her mother-in-law's handbook shop and asks for the real reason she is doing this. You can no longer bear children for the family. Do you think you still deserve to be my daughter-in-law? The mother-in-law also tells Hiyong that her time to settle this matter quietly is running out, ordering her to finish things with her son once and for all tonight. Facing such a cruel mother-in-law, Hiyong feels there is no point in dragging this out any longer. She prepares a table full of food at home and calls her husband, telling him to come back early. Then, during the meal, Hiyong tells her husband about all the hard work she has done at home and mentions that today is the last time she will cook for him in this house, asking him to be kind and let her leave. But her husband, still wanting to maintain his image in front of the media, refuses to divorce her, even saying that whatever she wants now, he can provide. Hearing this, Hiyong says she has already found her own place to live and tells her husband to stop clinging on. Afterward, she goes to her late son's room to say goodbye to the beautiful memories she once had in this room. However, to ensure her mother-in-law won't come looking for trouble in the future, she deliberately stays behind to leave her a gift. This kind-hearted woman is finally smart for once. She uses her phone to record the real reason her mother-in-law is kicking her out of the house. It seems that marrying into a family with a vicious mother-in-law does have one benefit. To protect yourself, you learn to use a few tricks. Before leaving, Hiyong warns her mother-in-law that if she continues to harass her, she will release this recording to the media. Leaving the husband's house, which had made her life a living hell every single day, completely changes Hiyong's state of mind. She can sleep comfortably until she wakes up naturally, and when she walks down the street, she can even smell the fragrance of the whole world. To celebrate her escape from her sea of misery, Ji-gun buys a bunch of furniture as a housewarming gift for her new place. Meanwhile, back at home, her husband is truly learning the meaning of you don't know what you've got till it's gone due to Hiyong's departure. So, he discusses bringing his wife back with his mother, stating that no matter what, he will not get a divorce. The cruel mother-in-law, wanting her son to forget his ex-wife, starts introducing potential partners to him everywhere, but her son gives her no face. At the restaurant, he rejects the woman directly and storms off in anger before the food even arrives. Later, using his recent promotion as an excuse, he visits his in-laws' house, trying once again to use her parents to pull Hiyong back closer to him. At this point, her father still doesn't know anything and is even overjoyed that his daughter has married such a talented son-in-law. But Hiyong's words hit him like a bucket of ice-cold water. I want a divorce. People often say that couples should be advised to stay together rather than separate, but after hearing his daughter's explanation, the father can only suppress his tears and leave the restaurant. It seems all the effort he put into specially preparing a congratulatory banner for his son-in-law was truly a waste. Not wanting to see her family heartbroken, Hiyong begs her husband not to disturb her family anymore. Do you really want nothing but hatred left between us? Her father then tells his son-in-law not to look for Hiyong in the future, hoping they can resolve this matter peacefully. But will the son-in-law, who is currently kneeling, listen to his father-in-law? A group of women in their 40s gather together to badmouth their husbands, but Hiyong's husband is the only one who makes everyone jealous. Not only is he handsome and holds a high-ranking position, but his family is also extremely wealthy. He is truly the model of the perfect husband next door. However, they don't know that Hiyong has already filed for divorce. Besides being unable to tolerate her husband's infidelity, she also can't accept her mother-in-law constantly mocking and ridiculing her every day. Having finally escaped her sea of misery, she intends to start a new life, but her husband still refuses to let her go. Aside from arranging for a housekeeper to take care of her meals, he even gifts her a luxury car to make getting around easier and asks his friends to secretly help her with her job issues. But a marriage relationship is like flying a kite. The tighter you hold on, the easier the string of affection snaps. When Hiyong finds out that all this help is coming from her husband, she firmly refuses his goodwill. She meets her husband at a high-end restaurant to issue a final warning, hoping the two of them can part ways amicably instead of dragging things out until only hatred remains. Yet, her husband is still delusional and makes an unreasonable demand. I can let you live independently, but you must be my wife once again. Come back to my side. This condition might sound tempting, but Hiyong just wants to be done with him quickly. She tells him to sign the divorce papers immediately, or else they will have to meet in court. Unable to accept Hye-ryung's departure, her husband invites a group of friends out for drinks to drown his sorrows. Unable to handle his liquor, he can barely walk after just a few glasses. His assistant has to take him home, while he keeps calling out his wife's name, Hye-ryung. Seeing this, his mother is extremely disappointed that he is ruining his bright future over a woman. So, she plans to smear her daughter-in-law's reputation once again. Today, she goes to the nursing home managed by the company's board. In front of the elderly residents, she speaks to Hye-ryung with disdain, claiming she isn't worthy of participating in the board's welfare activities, and tells her to leave quickly and stop polluting the environment. After suffering a loss, the mother-in-law returns home, and again advises her son to give up on this daughter-in-law, who cannot carry on the family line. But unexpectedly, her son's reply leaves her stunned. "I had a vasectomy 5 years ago." The vicious mother-in-law cannot accept this truth. So she invites Hye-ryung's mother to her house and falsely accuses her daughter of having an affair. When Hye-ryung finds out her mother is being bullied by her mother-in-law, she goes straight to the house she never wanted to return to, demanding to know what she said to her mother. This fake mother-in-law tries to raise her hand to hit her daughter-in-law again, but this time the daughter-in-law decides not to take it anymore. She grabs her hand and tells her to stop treating her like a punching bag, declaring she is no longer the daughter-in-law she can bully like before. Because of her husband's infidelity, Hye-ryung has decided to divorce him. Meanwhile, fearing that public pressure might affect her son's future, the mother-in-law plots to blame Hye-ryung for the divorce, and the public opinion surrounding this divorce directly impacts the mother-in-law's business, with the hanbok shop seeing a massive surge in returned orders. But the mother-in-law plans to pin the blame on her daughter-in-law, so she personally goes to the in-laws' house. Hye-ryung's family can't believe their eyes when they see this cold-blooded mother-in-law. This is only the second time in over 10 years of being in-laws that she has visited. Hye-ryung originally intends to kick her out straight away, but her father wants to see what tricks the mother-in-law is up to, so he politely welcomes this hypocritical woman. "I know you came here because your son doesn't want to give up on Hye-ryung. This is what your daughter has done. The one having an affair isn't my son, it is her." Hearing this, her mother is utterly shocked. Doesn't she know what kind of person her own daughter is? She tells the mother-in-law not to make false accusations, but the mother-in-law sitting opposite her still refuses to admit it, telling the two of them that if they know what's good for them, they should quickly admit the truth to the media. This makes her mother unable to sit still. She runs out to the yard, grabs a trash can nearby, and dumps it directly onto the mother-in-law's car. I've seen people throw paint and eggs, but I've honestly never seen someone dump trash like that. Unable to bear the humiliation, the mother-in-law gets out of the car, intending to slap Hye-ryung's mother, but she is stopped just in time by her son. To prevent his mother from further embarrassing herself in front of others, the son drags her away from the scene. But back at home, his mother scolds him for being useless and for siding with outsiders. Her son has also had enough of his mother and finally reveals a secret he has kept buried in his heart for over 30 years. "Home, for me, was hell. But she changed everything. Mother, it is you who destroyed everything." Facing his mother's cold-blooded nature, he finally agrees to divorce Hye-ryung. The disappointed husband sits alone drinking in the living room, recalling the year their son passed away. Both of them were drowning in the grief of losing their child, but Hye-ryung took a little longer to recover. At that time, unable to face a wife who lived in constant torment every day, the husband finally broke down completely, which led him down this dangerous path. The next day, Hye-ryung arrives at the district office as arranged with her husband to register the divorce. The two people who once loved each other part ways from there. A young boy, skipping class, crashes right into Hye-ryung, getting cake smeared all over his face. Instead of scolding the boy, she gently tells him to be careful when running in the hallway next time. After the divorce, Hye-ryung goes to her late son's school to work as a cooking teacher. Every day, she happily plays with the children, feeling that her life is very fulfilling. She can live freely while doing the job she loves. Today, she sees a transfer student being bullied by other kids. To soothe the boy's emotions, Hye-ryung takes the initiative to approach and get to know him. "I don't like people talking next to me when I'm studying." The boy's words surprise Hye-ryung. She didn't expect such a young child to be so mature. To help the boy integrate quickly into the new environment, Hye-ryung invites him to be her judge. But unexpectedly, the boy turns out to be Ji-gun's son. What a coincidence. Fate is truly wondrous. 5 years ago, Ji-gun was destined to cross paths with Hye-ryung. He always appears exactly when Hye-ryung needs him the most. It was also thanks to Ji-gun's encouragement that she found the courage to leave the mother-in-law she had tolerated for far too long. He was also the one who stayed by her side during her moments of deepest grief, giving her hope to live again. The two quickly developed feelings for each other through their long-term interactions. Meanwhile, her ex-husband, after the divorce, begins to cooperate unconditionally with his mother on blind dates. As long as his mother says someone is good, he agrees. But deep down, he still cannot forget his ex-wife. He secretly observes her life and has to rely on sleeping pills every day just to get some sleep. Today, he hears from the former chairman that the reason his ex-wife's boyfriend divorced the chairman's daughter was because of a car accident 5 years ago. He was unable to save the child in the accident and could never escape the guilt, so the chairman's daughter had to divorce him. Upon learning this news, the ex-husband seems to realize something and immediately goes to the hospital to confirm it with another doctor. When the child was brought in, there was basically no chance of survival. The doctor tells him that the situation at that time was critical, making it very difficult to judge whether it was caused by negligence or not. Knowing the truth, the ex-husband cannot accept that the murderer who harmed his son is now with his ex-wife. he arranges to meet Hiyong at a quiet restaurant, intending to tell her the truth about their son's death. But unexpectedly, when the words are on the tip of his tongue, he doesn't know how to say them. The man sees that his ex-wife has finally managed to escape the pain of losing their child. He truly can't bear to tell her the truth, so he swallows the emotions he had prepared to release. Instead, he arranges to meet Ji-gun privately on the rooftop, intending to teach this clueless doctor a lesson. Knowing that this moment would come sooner or later, Ji-gun immediately kneels down in front of him. "Do you think that just because you kneel and apologize, I will forgive you? I am not asking for your forgiveness, I am begging you." The man knows that no matter how much he beats Ji-gun, his son cannot come back to life. The only thing he can do now is protect his ex-wife. So he tells Ji-gun to leave Korea immediately and never return. At this point, Hiyong still knows nothing. Just like any couple in love, she has arranged to go to the movies with Ji-gun. Seeing her happy smile, Ji-gun finds himself unable to say the 1,000 words he wants to speak. Later, they travel to a small town in the countryside. His melancholy expression finally catches Hiyong's attention, and she asks him if he is hiding something from her, wondering why his eyes are filled with such sadness. "Because I have done so many things to wrong you, I will forgive you." Looking at the woman in front of him, who is always thinking of him, Ji-gun feels an indescribable pain in his heart. On the other side, following his mother's wishes, the ex-husband is preparing to meet the parents of his blind date. However, when he arrives at the restaurant entrance, he hesitates and doesn't want to go in, beginning to regret divorcing Hiyong. His mother, desperate to marry him into this wealthy family, calls him repeatedly to rush him. Finally unable to withstand his mother's bombardment, the son arrives at the very end of the meal and directly tells the girl's family that he is still not ready to accept someone else. Hearing this, his mother is so furious, she almost explodes in rage right there. But she is stopped by the girl's family. "Thank you for your son's honesty, but don't ever dream of associating with people in our circle for the rest of your life." Back at home, the more the mother-in-law thinks about it, the angrier she gets. The cooked duck has flown away right as it was about to be served, and it is all because of this Hiyong. She decides to find Hiyong to settle the score. The secretary, by her side, wanting to avoid serious consequences, calls the son to tell him to stop his mother quickly. But unexpectedly, while Hiyong is driving, she happens to be spotted by her mother-in-law. Having just gotten her driver's license, Hiyong panics in the heat of the moment and accidentally steps on the gas pedal instead of the brake, crashing straight into the water barrels used as crash cushions at the intersection. Seeing Ji-gun bleeding profusely, a frantic Hiyong can only call out his name. Meanwhile, the mother-in-law, sitting in her car, is afraid that people will say it is her responsibility and orders her driver to leave the scene immediately. The ex-husband also arrives quickly and helps call an ambulance. But by this time, Hiyong is scared out of her wits, terrified that Ji-gun, just like her son, will leave her forever. Even when the hospital diagnosis confirms he is fine, she still doesn't dare to step into the hospital room to look at him. Her ex-husband, however, despises her weakness. "So, are you going to start blaming yourself again and hide in your own personal hell?" Seeing that Hiyong still refuses to face it, the ex-husband drags her to the door of the hospital room, forcing her to see with her own eyes instead of just imagining things and crying like a fool. Then, Hiyong slowly walks into the room and tells Ji-gun that she is very scared. But before she can finish her sentence, Ji-gun pulls Hiyong into a tight embrace. Ji-gun possesses hands capable of performing the most difficult surgeries, but in that car accident, in order to protect the woman he loves most, he single-handedly ended his own career. Not wanting to upset his girlfriend, he pretends that everything will gradually recover. But Hiyong still doesn't know that this boyfriend she is so worried about is the very same doctor who unintentionally caused harm to her son 5 years ago. Today, Hiyong accidentally finds out that her boyfriend's hands can no longer hold a scalpel. Her hatred for that mother-in-law intensifies, and she angrily storms into her hanbok shop, warning her never to appear in her life again. But the vicious mother-in-law twists the truth, claiming Hiyong is turning black into white, accusing her of constantly clinging to her son, which caused her wealthy marriage arrangement to fall apart. Hearing this, Hiyong becomes even more furious. She takes out her phone and calls her ex-husband. She demands that if he is still obsessed with her, he should give up soon and hurry up and marry another woman. She tells him she doesn't want to die at the hands of his mother. Hiyong also tells her mother-in-law that if she dares to lay a hand on her loved ones again, she will release that recording onto major websites. Hearing this, the mother-in-law is so angry she can barely breathe and hurriedly calls her son to explain herself. Meanwhile, feeling guilty about Ji-gun's injured hand, Hiyong buys a bunch of snacks to apologize. She even tells her boyfriend not to worry about their future life, saying that even if he can't work, she will take care of him for the rest of his life. Ji-gun pretends to be calm, smiling, and tells her that it would be great. Wanting to make Hiyong feel a little better, Ji-gun invites her to sleep in the same bed with him. But late at night, Hiyong wakes up to find him gone. Running outside, she finds him sitting alone on a bench, grieving. On the other side, the vicious mother-in-law, wanting to reduce the interaction between Hiyong and her son, orders someone to get Hiyong fired from the school where she works. Her ex-husband finds out about this news and is about to go to the school to stop it, but he discovers that his ex-wife is no longer the Hiyong of the past. He tells her that tomorrow is the anniversary of Seojin's death, and he wants her to go with him, admitting he doesn't dare to go alone. Feeling the need to visit her late son together, Hiyong agrees to his request. Today, the man meets his ex-wife to attend their son's memorial service together. To show how serious he is, he puts on his wedding suit and even prepares their old wedding rings, intending to rekindle the old flame with his ex-wife. But to increase his chances of success, he pleads with his son in the photo. Dad plans to get rejected flat, out by mom in front of you, and then bounce back. Then, the man drives to the meeting spot. By this time, Hiyong has been waiting for him for over half an hour. Seeing that it is almost past the appointment time, she calls to ask where he is. But she doesn't know that at this moment, her ex-husband is breaking out in a cold sweat, his breathing becoming rapid, and he no longer has the strength to answer the phone. Still, he refuses to give up, trying his best to reach for the phone on the seat, but finally faints onto the steering wheel. It looks like Dad can't keep his promise. The car stuck at the intersection quickly attracts the attention of passers-by, who call an ambulance to take the man to the hospital. After a thorough diagnosis by Hiyong, the result is a malignant brain tumor. He has only 6 months left to live. When the man wakes up and learns the news, he acts in disbelief, saying that nothing can defeat him within 6 months. Because he wants to make his appointment with Hiyong today, he refuses Hiyong's advice to have immediate surgery. With superhuman driving skills, he arrives at the meeting point before 12 o'clock. Even though I'm late, Dad did what he promised. Then, the handsome man shows off his ball skills in front of his son, constantly showing off. But in the end, unable to hold back his emotions, he sits on the ground, repenting to his son in heaven for not being a good father. After you left, Dad did so many things to wrong Mom. I originally planned to apologize to Mom today, but now it seems heaven doesn't want to give Dad a chance. Knowing he doesn't have long to live, the man begins to cherish the things around him. Even when faced with his mother's cooking, which she had hidden for over 20 years, he suddenly feels it isn't that bad. But in the dead of night, he secretly cries alone in the bathroom. As for Hiyong, to celebrate her boyfriend Hiyong's discharge from the hospital, she specially invites him to meet on her mother's birthday. Hearing this, Hiyong is very happy, feeling that his relationship with Hiyong has taken another step forward. But unexpectedly, while processing his discharge papers, he accidentally learns about Hiyong's ex-husband's condition. As a doctor with a professional conscience, he can only grit his teeth and go find his girlfriend's ex-husband, advising him to have surgery as soon as possible. If you continue wandering around outside, what kills you won't be the tumor, but a traffic accident. But the man still refuses to accept the reality of his illness, and tells Hiyong, the man who harmed his son, to leave immediately. Seeing that he cannot be persuaded, Hiyong simply hands him a bottle of painkillers and leaves. Soon enough, Hiyong's mother's birthday arrives. The whole family is eagerly anticipating Hiyong's new boyfriend. But unexpectedly, the person who steps out from behind the door is her ex-husband. Happy birthday, mother-in-law. The mother-in-law feels very uncomfortable with this unexpected wish and scolds him, asking if he came intentionally to ruin her birthday party. The father-in-law gives him no face either, dragging him directly out of the party. With high emotional intelligence, Hiyong sees the situation isn't right, so he politely offers his congratulations and leaves. At this moment, Hiyong still doesn't know that her ex-husband came because he has been diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor and has less than 6 months left to live. Her ex-husband hopes that before leaving this world, he can make up for his past mistakes. Today, the chairman finds out that his son and Hiyong's younger sister have had a child out of wedlock. Fearing this will tarnish the family's reputation, he invites the ex-husband along to persuade the father-in-law, intending to use money to make his daughter give up the baby in her womb. Hearing this, Hiyong's father is so furious that he rushes forward and grabs the chairman by the collar, telling him not to think he can do whatever he wants just because he has money. The chairman assumes his subordinate standing nearby will step in to defend him, but unexpectedly, this former son-in-law stands on the opposing side. There are some things you cannot just say recklessly. Please apologize to my father-in-law immediately. Not wanting to ruin the high-class party arranged for the evening, the chairman fakes an apology and leaves. The ex-husband also angers the chairman by defending his father-in-law, losing the job to which he had dedicated 10 years of his youth. But he doesn't feel too disappointed. On the contrary, he now has more time to do the things he wants to do. So, in the dead of night, he seeks out his father-in-law and tells him that he is about to leave this world, begging his father-in-law to give him more time in his final moments to make amends to Hiyong. Who could refuse the request of a dying man? The father-in-law immediately agrees to let him be the manager of his restaurant. This confuses Hiyong, who has just quit her job to help her father manage the business. Wondering why this ex-husband keeps clinging on relentlessly, she confronts him directly to clear things up. You just do your work and I will finish mine. It is simply because he wants to see his ex-wife more during his final days. Not only does he change his previously cold attitude, but he also constantly tries to win Hiyong over. However, this is quickly discovered by the vicious mother-in-law. She worked so hard to separate the two, and now her son is going behind her back to do this. Furious, she runs straight to the mother-in-law's house, grabs Hiyong, shakes her violently, and calls her shameless for still clinging to her son even after the divorce. Hiyong's mother can't take it anymore hearing this, so she rushes forward and grabs the other woman's hair. The ex-husband originally intends to intervene, but at that moment he suffers a headache and almost loses his balance. To avoid being discovered by everyone, he can only quickly flee the scene. Luckily, he is spotted by his ex-wife's boyfriend, who happens to be passing by, who gives him a sedative injection to alleviate the symptoms. Hiyong takes the ex-husband home and asks him why he is doing this. I just want to be by the side of the person I miss, to look at her, and then slowly leave this world. Seeing that he cannot be persuaded, Hiyong can only quietly leave. Meanwhile, the mother returns home in a rage and beats her son, asking him why he is so weak, ruining himself over a woman. She tells him to get up quickly, go apologize to the chairman, and say some nice words to get his old position back. But no matter how much the mother beside him scolds him, he just lies motionless on the sofa, feeling indifferent to everything she says. As for Hiyong, while cleaning the restaurant, she discovers the painkillers her ex-husband dropped, and only then does she recall his unusual behavior lately. Curiosity drives her to go to the pharmacy to ask the pharmacist, and she finally learns the truth that her ex-husband is seriously ill. So, she uses returning medicine as an excuse to confirm this with her ex-husband. Seeing Hiyong, her ex-husband is very happy, even saying she didn't need to go through the trouble of coming all the way here at this hour. Just as he is about to take the medicine from Hiyong's hand, his hand loses strength, and he drops the medicine on the ground. "You're dying, aren't you?" Hearing this, the man calmly replies, "Everyone dies eventually. It's just that some go sooner, and some go later." The woman cannot understand his actions. He is sick, but doesn't go to the doctor. Instead, he runs to her father's restaurant to work as a manager. Is he planning to die and leave her family feeling guilty for the rest of their lives? Hearing this, the man hurriedly explains, saying that he is doing this simply because he wants to hear her voice, and that even being scolded makes him feel very content. Wanting her ex-husband to willingly go to the hospital for treatment, Hiyong holds back her tears and tells him to stop daydreaming. She says she already has her own happiness, and tells him not to come around anymore. After saying that, Hiyong turns and walks away, but her tears flow uncontrollably. However, this scene is witnessed by her mother-in-law, who angrily runs over and grabs Hiyong, calling her a manipulative schemer, and telling her to stop pretending to be weak to gain her son's pity. The mother-in-law is so furious she loses all reason, grabbing Hiyong's hair and shaking her violently, scolding her from head to toe. Luckily, her boyfriend Jae-gun arrives just in time to save Hiyong. Seeing his girlfriend being humiliated like this, he bluntly warns them. "She no longer has any relationship with your family. She is the woman who is about to marry me. If I see her being bullied by you again, I won't let it slide." Seeing the two of them so affectionate, the mother-in-law tries to provoke her son. Seeing this scene, "Do you still love her?" "Yes, I love her." Hearing this, his mother slaps him hard across the face, furious at why her son is so delusional. On the other side, Hiyong returns home sobbing uncontrollably. Jae-gun can only silently stay by her side to protect her, waiting for her to pour out all the pain in her heart, then help her into bed to sleep. But the next day, the ex-husband still comes to work at the father-in-law's restaurant as usual, as if yesterday's events had never happened. Hiyong truly can't take it anymore, so she goes to the storage room to persuade him to see a doctor soon. But her ex-husband tells her that this illness basically cannot be cured. So instead of lying in a hospital for a few months, he wants to use the time while he can still move to do the things he wants to do. Meanwhile, Jae-gun opens a clinic near Hiyong's house, planning to stay by her side for the rest of his life. On opening day, he invites Hiyong to the clinic, saying that to celebrate the opening, he will treat her to dinner tonight. Happy for her boyfriend, Hiyong agrees. But unexpectedly, the restaurant holds a staff party, and they go to a karaoke bar to sing. Taking advantage of being drunk, the ex-husband sings the song their son loved the most. This makes Hiyong inevitably recall the days when their family was warm and happy. Finally unable to hold back her tears, Hiyong secretly runs outside. Seeing this, her ex-husband chases after her, saying he deliberately chose this song just to gain Hiyong's pity. But halfway through speaking, the effects of the alcohol trigger a headache, and he collapses to the ground. At this moment, Jae-gun is still anxiously waiting at the clinic. Today, he had prepared a beautiful wedding dress and a sparkling ring, intending to propose to the woman he loves. When he hears a noise outside the door, thinking it is Hiyong, he opens the door to welcome her. But the scene outside ruins all his plans. This leaves Jae-gun, who originally intended to propose to Hiyong, stunned. He can only carry the man onto the hospital bed for an examination, and then give him a sedative injection. Not long after, the ex-husband's condition finally stabilizes. But when Hiyong shows pity for him, he grabs her hand. "Hiyong, please stay with me for just 3 more months." Luckily, this scene is seen by the boyfriend who has just walked in. He not only pries the ex-husband's hand off Hiyong's, but also warns him not to casually grab another man's woman's hand. This leaves Hiyong feeling incredibly awkward, caught between the two men, and she can only leave in embarrassment. Seeing his rival act so tough, the ex-husband refuses to back down. He thanks him for showing up, saying that it has reignited the fighting spirit in a dying man like him, giving him an intense desire to stay by Hiyong's side. After saying that, he leaves. Upon returning home, the man cherishes the time he has left with his mother, and insists that Shea woman, who doesn't know how to cook, make noodles for him. Although she acts annoyed, the man keeps praising her cooking as delicious, and even invites his mother to go on a trip with him. Hearing this, the mother is very surprised, wondering why her usually quiet son has become so lively. On the other side, after thinking it over, Jae-gun decides to tell Hiyong the secret he has been hiding. So, he goes to the bus stop where Hiyong is waiting, and tells her his original plan. "Marry me?" Then, the man takes a modest ring out of his pocket and slowly opens the box in front of Hiyong. Seeing this, Hiyong is incredibly moved. She doesn't hesitate to praise the ring's beauty, and it fits her finger perfectly. Hiyong also thanks him for always appearing when she needed him most, saying she is willing to spend her whole life with him. Seizing the happy atmosphere, Jae-gun leans in closer to Hiyong. Soon after, her boyfriend personally visits her mother's house to ask for her hand in marriage. Visiting for the first time, he behaves very tactfully. Not only does he chat happily with the family, but he also goes into the kitchen himself to help his future mother-in-law. The whole family is overjoyed that Hiyong has found such a perfect man. Meanwhile, over at the ex-husband's house, the atmosphere is completely the opposite. The vicious mother-in-law accidentally discovers a text message on her son's phone. At first, she thinks she is overthinking it, but when her son's doctor friend visits late at night, she becomes certain that something fishy is going on. Not wanting his mother to find out, her son makes an excuse to go outside to talk. His mother, unable to contain her curiosity, quietly stands nearby to eavesdrop on their conversation. "Come to the hospital with me. Even if the surgery is successful, I'll only live for another year. I don't want to die in a hospital." Hearing this, his mother steps back in terror. She doesn't dare ask her son directly, so she quietly drives to the cemetery to verify. Sure enough, right next to her grandson's grave, she discovers an empty plot. So, she asks the caretaker for the list of reservations. Realizing her son is about to pass away, his mother is unable to calm down for a long time. She walks alone down the street in the pouring rain, her mind constantly replaying recent events with her son. "I want to eat your cooking more often, Mom." She remembers slapping her son with her own hand just a few days ago. Filled with immense regret and anger at herself, she rubs her hand against the ground, wishing she could chop it off. Hiyong thought she could enter her new marriage smoothly, but unexpectedly, on her way home today, she was blocked by her ex-mother-in-law's car. Getting out of the car, the mother-in-law gently takes Hiyong's hand, begging her to save her son and asking her to be her daughter-in-law one more time. But Hiyong's gaze remains firm. She pulls her hand away and tells her mother-in-law to stop dreaming. "I have endured enough of those miserable days. Only if you agree to come back can my son be saved." Hearing this, Hiyong finds it ridiculous. If he's sick, he should see a doctor. "What is the point of coming to me?" The mother-in-law hurriedly explains, "You are my son's only lifeline. He will only agree to treatment if he is by your side." She adds that as long as Hiyong agrees to return, she will meet any condition. But Hiyong tells her ex-mother-in-law, "I already have a new boyfriend, and we are preparing to get married. You should deal with this yourself." After saying that, she leaves decisively. But looking at the expression on this vicious mother-in-law's face, it seems she is plotting something again. So, the very next day, taking advantage of a live television broadcast, she publicly reveals her schemes from over the years. Using the media's lens, the mother-in-law openly apologizes to Hiyong, admitting that back then, she used her deceased grandson as an excuse to kick her out of the house. She even assures everyone that she will permanently leave the entertainment industry and withdraw from the hanbok fashion world forever. Not only that, she personally goes to the house to apologize, begging Hiyong's mother to be magnanimous and accept her son once again. But Hiyong pays no attention, convinced that this vicious mother-in-law is surely pulling another scam, and tells her ex-husband to hurry up and take his mother home. Seeing that her negotiations have failed, the mother-in-law can only suppress her tears and leave. Back home, her son lays his head on his mother's lap and tells her to stop bothering Hiyong. "What you are doing is only pushing her further away from me. Right now, she might still turn a blind eye out of pity for me, but if you continue to bully her, I might never be able to see her again." However, his mother still refuses to give up. The next day, she arranges to meet Ji-gun's son, intending to use the boy to force Ji-gun to give up on Hiyong. Furious, Ji-gun settles his son and then rushes to his vicious mother-in-law's house, warning her not to touch his son again. But the mother-in-law tells Ji-gun, "As long as you obediently call off the wedding with Hiyong, everything is negotiable. But if you don't agree, if you don't want to see your son again," Ji-gun grabs the mother-in-law and tells her to wake up and take her son to the hospital immediately. Based on what I know about Hiyong, she will never return to this house. But everything that just happened is clearly overheard by her son outside the door. Upon entering the house, he doesn't say a word. He just silently cleans up the broken pieces on the floor, then picks up the largest shard. The son tells his mother, "By doing this, the person you are hurting the most is me." He begs her to stop harming innocent people. Today, Hiyong has arranged to go on a pre-wedding honeymoon with Ji-gun, but just as she is preparing to leave, she is blocked by her ex-mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law tells her that her ex-husband is planning to leave his mother behind and commit suicide. "These are the sleeping pills I found in his study. I also discovered that he has already planned the time of his own death. To atone for his sins, he even reserved a grave next to his late son in advance." Hiyong is surprised to hear this. Just a few days ago, he was clinging to her, so why does he suddenly want to end his life? So, she runs to her son's grave and finds him repenting in front of their son. She says to her ex-husband, "How can you be so selfish, putting your grave next to our son's? How am I supposed to visit our son in the future?" Hiyong throws the bottle of sleeping pills hard onto the ground, asking him why he won't leave her alone even after death. "Let's die together then. That way, the three of us lying next to each other won't feel lonely later." The man begins to feel heartache for his ex-wife. He grabs Hiyong's hand, admits it is his fault, and promises to live well from now on. Ji-gun, who has been anxiously waiting, finally receives a call from Hiyong asking him to come pick her up. When Ji-gun arrives and sees Hiyong sitting on the ground in misery, he rushes forward, intending to punch her ex-husband. But the man's words make him lower his fist. "Save me." But Ji-gun tells him, "I can't. My hands now don't allow me to hold a scalpel anymore." Then helplessly, he takes Hiyong away. Afterward, they arrive at the pre-booked villa. To help Hiyong calm down, he pulls her into the pool. Hiyong accepts this way of cooling off, and after getting out of the water, she tells Ji-gun everything. Instead of getting angry, he thanks her for her honesty, saying that the fact she could think of him during her deepest sorrow is the greatest trust she could give him. The next day, Hiyong wakes up to find a pink box at the door. Opening it, she sees a beautiful dress. Then she receives a message from Ji-gun saying that today, he will hold their wedding. Not long after, Hiyong, wearing high heels and a white wedding dress, walks towards him from afar. Her boyfriend steps forward and hands her a bouquet of flowers. Are you ready? The two complete their happy wedding ceremony amidst the singing of their friends. Meanwhile, the mother-in-law has someone track down her grandson's attending physician from years ago, only to find out that it is actually Hiyong's fiancé. Furious, she storms into Ji-gun's clinic and trashes his office thoroughly, demanding to know from Ji-gun's father where he is. She wants to find the person who harmed her grandson to settle the score. However, as soon as her son arrives, he tells his mother that his nephew's death had nothing to do with Ji-gun. He explains that Ji-gun tried his best to save her grandson and hopes she will stop pursuing this, but she stubbornly refuses to believe it. Her son truly can't listen to it anymore, so he drags her outside, begging his mother to stop talking. If Hiyong finds out, she will collapse. Hearing this, his mother raises her hand, intending to hit her son again. Just let her live a good life. Today, her son's illness relapses again. He struggles to climb the stairs, intending to ask the doctor for a sedative injection to alleviate the symptoms, but ultimately, he can't hold on and collapses on the stairs in front of the clinic. Seeing this, the doctor calls an ambulance to take him to a large hospital for treatment. The vicious mother-in-law rushes over to ask the doctor about the situation. He tells her that he needs immediate surgery. Delaying any longer will only make the situation worse. But the only problem now is that this high-precision surgery can only be performed by one person in the entire country. Who is he? It is Ji-gun. But unfortunately, his hand was injured not long ago. The vicious mother-in-law is utterly shocked to hear this. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? The only chance to save her son's life was destroyed by her own hands. But she refuses to give up and decides to meet Ji-gun personally. When they meet, she changes her previously aggressive attitude, bowing and scraping as she begs him to save her son. She promises that as long as Ji-gun agrees to step in, she can meet any of his demands. But Ji-gun is also helpless, telling the mother-in-law, "If my hand were fine right now, even if you didn't come looking for me, I would still try to save him. Right now, there is truly no other way." Hearing this, the mother-in-law's face changes instantly, claiming Ji-gun is doing it on purpose. "In your heart, you just don't want to save my son." Ji-gun is shocked to hear this. How can there be such a sinister mother? Not wanting to argue with her, he simply asks her to leave quickly. But how could the vicious mother-in-law let it go so easily? So, while Ji-gun is having dinner at his mother-in-law's house, she sends him a text message. "Having harmed my grandson, do you think I will let you off?" Reading this, Ji-gun is so terrified that his hand holding the cup shakes and his face instantly turns pale. He can only use feeling unwell as an excuse to ask to leave early. Coincidentally, however, he meets Hiyong at the door. Seeing him breaking out in a cold sweat, she asks if he is sick. Terrified, Ji-gun hurriedly avoids her gaze. He tells her not to go anywhere today and to rest well at home. After saying that, he gives his girlfriend a hug and leaves. Afterward, he goes to the vicious mother-in-law's house. Seeing him, the mother-in-law slaps him right across the face just as Hiyong witnesses it. It turns out that Hiyong, noticing her boyfriend's strange behavior earlier, had hailed a taxi to follow him. Hiyong asks her ex-mother-in-law why she did that. Just as the mother-in-law is about to spill the truth, she is called back by the housekeeper. "The young master is having a seizure again. Come in quickly and take a look." The vicious mother-in-law has no choice but to pause helplessly. Hiyong originally intends to go in with them, but she is stopped by Ji-gun. Thinking it was just the vicious mother-in-law bullying people again, she doesn't think much of it. However, back at home, Ji-gun still cannot calm down, hiding in his room, drinking alone. He feels like the secret is about to be exposed. How is he supposed to explain to his newly wife that he is the doctor who failed to save her son's life? Today, Hiyong plans to go to the clinic to ask her boyfriend out for a meal. But on the way there, she overhears news that plunges her back into the abyss once again. Was it really Ji-gun who harmed that child? Hearing this, a chill runs down Hiyong's spine. It can't be such a coincidence, can it? So, she goes to her boyfriend's house and sees Ji-gun wiping away tears while preparing their wedding photos, constantly muttering to himself, "I absolutely cannot let you find out." Then, Hiyong slowly approaches Ji-gun from behind and cups his face with both hands. His expression sends another chill down her spine. Hiyong looks at her boyfriend, who keeps apologizing to her, the expression on his face completely out of control. It turns out this man had known for a long time that she was the mother of the child he failed to save 5 years ago. Hiyong screams and cries as she tears up all the photos, feeling as if her entire worldview has completely collapsed. Then she tells Ji-gun, "From now on, let's pretend we never met and never loved each other. Our relationship ends here." Because of this, Hiyong plunges back into the pain of 5 years ago, locking herself in her house every day and apologizing to her son in the photo. Ji-gun, also worried that Hiyong will lose control after learning the truth, informs her ex-husband the next day that Hiyong has discovered the truth. Her life from now on can only rely on you to protect it. So, the ex-husband rushes to find Hiyong, asking her why she is torturing herself like this. It wasn't him who harmed Seo-jin. Seo-jin had no hope of survival from the very beginning. Hiyong still refuses to believe the truth, stubbornly insisting that the child was harmed by Ji-gun. Her ex-husband feels that Hiyong is still the same Hiyong from 5 years ago, someone who only knows how to run away, wallow in her own misery, and disregard the feelings of those around her. He can only leave in frustration. Meanwhile, Hiyong feels guilty towards her son, and projects all her remorse onto the child's father. So, She swears in front of her son's memorial that she will save her ex-husband's life, restoring a complete family for her son. Afterward, she goes to her ex-husband's house to take care of his meals and buys a pile of books to research his illness, deciding she will only leave this house once her ex-husband has fully recovered. Even the vicious mother-in-law changes her previously arrogant attitude, obediently following all of Hiyong's arrangements. But happiness is short-lived. Today, while buying a birthday gift for Hiyong, the ex-husband suddenly has a seizure. Afterward, in a daze, he wanders onto the street and calls Hiyong for help, saying he doesn't remember where he is. It seems the tumor has become serious enough to affect his brain's memory. Receiving the call, Hiyong rushes out to find him. However, she happens to be spotted by her boyfriend Ji-gun. Seeing Hiyong anxiously searching for something, Ji-gun starts to debate whether or not to go over and ask. Eventually, Hiyong finds her ex-husband at an intersection. Ignoring the traffic, she dashes past one car after another and is finally saved just in time by Ji-gun. Ji-gun is also scared out of his wits. Looking at the driver's expression, you can tell just how crazy these three people are. Just as Ji-gun reaches out to grab Hiyong, she acts as if she doesn't see him and simply helps her ex-husband walk away. At this moment, Ji-gun feels both disappointed and helpless. Who told him to break Hiyong's heart in the first place? The ex-husband returns home and happily throws a birthday party for Hiyong, singing happy birthday to her and personally putting a beautiful diamond necklace on her. Facing this terminally ill ex-husband, Hiyong can only reluctantly accept his blessings. Meanwhile, Ji-gun, determined to make up for his mistake with Hiyong, dedicates himself to rehabilitating his right hand, swearing to cure her ex-husband with his own hands. Today, taking advantage of the ex-husband's follow-up visit to the hospital, he asks the doctor to advise Hiyong to proceed with surgery as soon as possible. But seeing Ji-gun walk in from behind the door, she firmly refuses and leaves. Ji-gun chases after her to explain, "I have obtained your ex-husband's consent. I hope you trust me." Hiyong doesn't want to trust the boyfriend who deceived her, so she firmly refuses to agree to let him be the attending physician. However, as Hiyong walks past the reception desk, she accidentally overhears one of Ji-gun's junior colleagues mentioning that 5 years ago, the child he treated had suffered severe hemorrhaging upon arrival, and the probability of survival was less than 0%. Everyone felt there was no hope and wanted to stop Ji-gun, but he insisted they had to try. Even though he ultimately couldn't save the child, out of guilt, he never performed brain surgery again. Although Hiyong doesn't want to accept it, this is the first time she has heard the truth about her son's death from a stranger's mouth, which softens her feelings towards Ji-gun somewhat. Afterward, the ex-husband is wheeled into the operating room as planned. At the very last moment, Hiyong says to Ji-gun, who is performing the surgery, "You must remember that Seo-jin was not harmed by you." Hearing this, Ji-gun feels greatly encouraged, as if the heavy rock that has weighed on his heart for the past 5 years has finally been lifted, giving him even more confidence for the upcoming surgery. But the surgery doesn't go as smoothly as everyone predicted. Due to a brain hemorrhage, the ex-husband falls into a condition similar to that of 5 years ago, and the monitoring machines beside him flatline. But Ji-gun refuses to let the tragedy of 5 years ago repeat itself, so he continuously performs CPR on the patient. "I beg you, please wake up." After 5 minutes of continuous resuscitation, the ex-husband finally had a heartbeat again. The doctor orders the surgery to continue. Meanwhile, Hiyong has been waiting outside for a grueling 5 hours. Any doctor walking by makes her incredibly anxious. The mother-in-law can't stand it anymore either, running over to ask Hiyong about the current situation. Ji-gun walks by and tells them not to worry, saying the patient is out of critical danger and they are currently performing the final steps, asking them to wait a little longer. However, when Ji-gun re-enters the operating room, the assistant doctor tells Ji-gun that the surgery has gone on for too long and the tumor has spread significantly. If they continue, the patient will be paralyzed from the neck down upon waking up. "Ji-gun, you have done your best. Let's stop here." After coming out, Ji-gun tells Hiyong that the surgery was very successful, but because he prolonged it for too long, the ex-husband now only has 1 month left to live. Hearing this, Hiyong collapses, begging him not to tell her ex-husband, fearing that if he finds out, he might want to end his own life again. Later, under the care of Hiyong and his mother, the ex-husband gradually wakes up. He is very happy to see his mother and ex-wife again, thinking the surgery was successful, and begins planning his life after recovery with his ex-wife. The man who has less than a month to live is now walking through the supermarket. He suddenly says he wants to buy some strong liquor to enjoy at home. Hiyong is very worried about his newly recovered body, but she doesn't stop him. Even though the surgery was successful, because the treatment was too late, he has less than a month left to live. His mother and ex-wife, wanting him to be happy in his final days, decided to keep this a secret. Meanwhile, the man truly thinks he is healthy again. He goes home grinning from ear to ear every day and starts doing things he always wanted to do but never got around to. For example, watching movies at home. Later, the two of them sit together in the living room, eating popcorn while watching an American blockbuster, reminiscing about their youth. Seeing a Christmas tree in the movie, the ex-husband remarks that they haven't celebrated Christmas together in a long time and suggests they definitely make up for it this year. But it is only June right now. The ex-husband surely won't make it until then. So, the next day, Hiyong secretly prepares a surprise at home. Seeing the Christmas tree in front of him, the ex-husband is both surprised and amazed. Why is this thing in the living room at this time of year? Hiyong tells her ex-husband, "Why wait until December? Perhaps blinded by happiness, he doesn't think too much of it and continuously thanks Hiyong for the arrangement. Afterward, the two of them lie on the sofa. Hiyong asks her ex-husband what else he wants to do next. Hearing this, the ex-husband thinks she is only taking care of him like this because he is seriously ill, so he suggests going camping. No problem. Let's invite Mom to come along. The next day, the man starts preparing the camping gear. Hiyong, worried about his health, tells him not to bring too much stuff. But he says it's fine, claiming the joy of camping lies in doing everything yourself. Just as he finishes organizing the gear and is about to go to his mother's room to call her out, he enters and sees her frantically trying to hide something. Finding it strange, the son asks his mother if she plans to go back to her old job. His mother goes along with his assumption and says yes, but the ex-husband wonders why the fabric is white. She quickly explains that nowadays, people don't like their handbags to be too elaborate. The simple-minded ex-husband actually believes her. Then, he returns to his room to continue packing. But coincidentally, he accidentally discovers a manual for handling emergencies after hospital discharge hidden in a bag. This confuses the ex-husband greatly. Clearly, he has fully recovered, so why did his ex-wife prepare this? So, he goes to another hospital for a checkup. Afterward, the doctor tells the ex-husband the truth. Most of the tumor in his brain has been removed, but because the treatment was too late, the deeper part of the brain has become infected. Unless a miracle doctor descends from heaven, he has less than a month to live. Stepping out of the hospital, the man finally realizes why his mother and ex-wife have been acting so strangely since his discharge. Meanwhile, back at home, his mother and ex-wife notice he has disappeared. When he doesn't answer his phone, they start to worry that he might have lost his memory again and gotten into trouble, so they go searching for him everywhere. In the evening, he takes his ex-wife Hiyong to eat grilled meat at a street stall, asking her to forgive him for disappearing without notice and promising there won't be a next time. The man then suggests that grilled meat isn't complete without beer, so he uses tea as a substitute for alcohol to liven up the atmosphere. But after a few drinks, Hiyong can't handle it anymore. Taking advantage of her tipsy state, she reflects on herself, recalling that year when she gave birth to Seo-jin. Due to difficult labor, she almost lost her life. It was her ex-husband's hands that gave her strength, helping her overcome that difficult moment. Hiyong complains about why she didn't remember this sooner. Ever since Seo-jin passed away, I have only known how to hate you, ignoring your feelings. I was too selfish back then. Overcome by grief and the effects of alcohol, Hiyong passes out on the table. Later, the man gently carries her home on his back. Looking at his former love, he can't help but kiss her on the forehead and stroke her hair, lamenting why two people who loved each other so deeply only remember each other's good qualities at the end of their lives. So, late that night, the man writes down the things he wants to do for his ex-wife. The next day, the man wakes up early, brews a cup of coffee, and brings it in. Hiyong wakes up, regretting that she might have drunk too much last night and said things she shouldn't have. Her ex-husband says, "I didn't expect you to hold grudges like that." Hearing this, Hiyong is very embarrassed, saying it was all just drunken nonsense and telling her ex-husband not to take it seriously. Her ex-husband tells Hiyong, "You were absolutely right. Today, I'll do all the housework, you just lie back and enjoy it." True to his word, after the meal, the ex-husband washes the dishes while listening to a symphony, feeling a sense of contentment he has never felt before. This leaves Hiyong and his mother standing behind him, watching in astonishment. Hiyong asks his mother if they should tell him the truth. Seeing him so blindly happy makes me feel even worse, but his mother disagrees, begging Hiyong to endure it for a little longer. Even if it's just for a few days, let him smile a little longer. It's been so long since I've seen him this happy. Hearing this, Hiyong softens. But the next day, the ex-husband starts clearing out his belongings, planning to say goodbye to the past. Hiyong walks by and curiously checks, discovering that many photos of her and her ex-husband have been thrown away, and he doesn't even want his winter clothes anymore. So Hiyong runs back to the room to confirm. The study has been completely cleared out as well. Then Hiyong opens the drawer and discovers the bucket list her ex-husband left behind. It turns out you knew everything. Hearing this, his mother collapses onto the sofa in terror. It turns out all their care was in vain. Meanwhile, the ex-husband is standing at the door, unsure whether he should go in and explain or not. This woman, who used to be a top hanbok designer, is now sewing a hanbok with her own hands. She tells her son that this is a gift for a very distinguished guest. But seeing her trembling yet persisting makes her son's heart ache, and he asks why she insists on doing it when her hands are shaking so much. Holding back her tears, his mother tells her son, "This is the first outfit I am making for this guest, and also the last, so I must finish it with my own hands." It turns out her son is about to pass away, and wanting to make up for her past mistakes, she decided to sew his burial shroud herself. Hearing this, her son is deeply moved and says that once she finishes, they will travel the world together to make up for past regrets. His mother says, no problem, whatever her son asks, she can do. But the ex-husband still has one person he is worried about, and that is his ex-wife. He hopes that after he is gone, his wife can live happily again. So, he seeks out Ji-gun and tells him that Hiyong is only staying by his side temporarily out of pity, and that the person she has loved from beginning to end is still Ji-gun. He hopes Ji-gun won't feel insecure, but will find the courage to face her and lead her out of her sorrow. Next, the man arranges to go to the movies with Hiyong, making up for the regret of their first date. He even thoughtfully prepares a single rose. Hiyong also dresses up beautifully, knowing this might be their last date, But just as they are about to enter the theater, the man says he is going to buy popcorn and soda and tells her to go inside and wait. However, Hiyong immediately realizes what he intends to do and grabs the man's hand tightly. "I'll be right back." And he lets go of her hand. True to form, the ex-husband follows the wish he wrote in his notebook, to let go of his ex-wife's hand and let her watch the movie alone. Instead, he gives the other ticket to Ji-gun. Ji-gun stays silently seated behind Hiyong, waiting for the movie to end. The man returns home, hugs his pillow, and says he wants to sleep with his mother. Then, just like when he was a child, his mother tells him silly stories from his childhood, making him very happy. The next day, they pack their bags as planned, preparing to travel around the world. But shortly after boarding the plane, the man begins to grow weak. Still, he doesn't stop describing the beautiful places they will visit to his mother. However, not long after, the man's symptoms became increasingly severe. His mother tries hard to keep talking to him so he won't fall into a coma too quickly, and even tries to feed him some airplane food to give him energy. But the man can no longer hold on. He lies in his mother's arms and never wakes up again. On the other side, Ji-gun asks Hiyong out. Not wanting to be a burden to her, he has decided to study abroad for a year. It just so happens there is a good job opportunity over there, and he wants to give it a try. Hearing this, Hiyong's expression turns heavy. Although she still hasn't been able to completely forgive Ji-gun, hearing that he is about to leave makes her feel very upset inside. A year passes quickly. Ji-gun returns, boards a bus, and finds a random seat to sit down. "Did you come to see me? Because this time, I didn't want to miss my chance." That brings us to the end of the movie. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to catch more great movie recaps. Goodbye and see you next time.